Is there a kind of knowledge so powerful, so ancient, and so raw that it could completely change the way you see the world? Not through hollow promises, but through core truths that transcend time, religion, and even science? Yes, I'm talking about the Kybalion, a mysterious text said to reveal 7 fundamental principles that govern every aspect of life, mind, matter, and spirit. But why has one of the greatest sets of instructions, possibly the blueprint behind everything, been buried, cloaked in symbols, and only whispered about by those who truly understand how reality operates? Why is it that only a select few, mystics, sages, ancient philosophers, have passed it on in hushed tones rather than sharing it loudly with the world? Maybe it's because the Kybalion isn't for the masses. Maybe it's for those who are ready to pierce the fog of the modern world and see what really drives it from within. In this video, you won't hear motivational fluff. You won't see cheesy self-help ads. You will hear the Kybalion, literally. For the next 40 minutes, I'm going to guide you through principles so deep they might just have you waking up at 3 a.m. whispering, "Damn." This explains everything. This isn't theology. This isn't pseudoscience. This is knowledge that, if you're willing to listen with an open mind and a serious heart, could actually change your life forever. For most people, life feels like a chaotic jumble of disconnected moments, a patchwork of fleeting highs and crushing lows stitched together by hope, struggle, and the monotony of routine. You wake up each day, chasing goals that seem just out of reach, reacting to problems that spring up like weeds, and fighting to keep your head above water. But beneath the surface of what we call reality lies a hidden structure, a system so precise, so foundational, that it operates whether you believe in it or not. It's not a theory or a philosophy. It's a set of laws, as real and unyielding as gravity, shaping every aspect of your existence. This system, known in ancient texts like the Kybalion as the Hermetic Principles, consists of 7 universal laws that govern everything, from the dance of galaxies in the cosmos to the quiet thoughts flickering through your mind. These aren't abstract spiritual notions floating in some ethereal void. They are the invisible gears that turn your relationships, your health, your career, your very identity. They dictate how manifestation works, how healing unfolds, and why cycles in your life repeat or break. If you've ever wondered why things seem to just happen to you, why opportunities slip through your fingers, or why the same struggles keep resurfacing, the answer is simple. You've been living under these laws without knowing how to navigate them. Imagine sitting down to a chessboard, blind to the rules, reacting to every move your opponent makes, bewildered as you lose piece after piece. That's how most of us live, stumbling through life, reacting to its moves, frustrated by constant defeat. The Kybalion is the rule book you were never given. The moment you crack it open, the board comes into focus. The pieces stop overwhelming you. You start to see the game for what it is, and you realize you can play it with intention, strategy, and power. What makes these laws so staggering isn't just that they exist, it's that they operate with absolute neutrality. The universe doesn't care if you're aware of them or not. It doesn't care if you're aligned with them or fighting against them. Like the law of gravity, these principles simply are. You're either working in harmony with them or struggling against their current. When you're misaligned, life feels like chaos, unpredictable, frustrating, a relentless cycle of missed opportunities and toxic patterns. You set goals, repeat affirmations, hustle endlessly, but nothing clicks. You blame bad luck, bad timing, or bad energy. But it's not luck, it's not timing, it's misalignment. When you align with these laws, everything shifts. Synchronicities multiply, as if the universe is winking at you. Fear dissolves, replaced by a quiet confidence. Resistance fades, and the patterns in your life, once maddeningly random, begin to make sense. You see them not as coincidences, but as reflections of your own consciousness, echoes of the signals you send out mentally, emotionally, and energetically. This isn't magic. It's not religion or blind belief. It's mechanics, a precise, predictable system that governs reality. The Kybalion doesn't ask you to adopt a new dogma or worship at some mystical altar. It simply hands you the blueprint to the engine of existence. It reveals the code running beneath the surface of your life. And here's what makes it transformative. It restores your agency. Not through empty positivity or spiritual platitudes, but through raw, unfiltered understanding. Once you see how this machine works, you stop being confused by it. You stop fearing it. You start using it. These laws were never taught in school. Your parents didn't pass them down over dinner. Your teachers didn't mention them in passing. Society thrives on your ignorance of them, because an awakened mind, one that understands these principles, is harder to manipulate. That's why the teachings of the Kybalion have been tucked away in the shadows, veiled in mystery schools, buried beneath layers of symbolism, and whispered only in esoteric circles. These principles weren't erased, they were reserved for those willing to seek them out. The power of the Kybalion lies in its clarity. It doesn't promise an easy life, but it offers a lucid one. A life where you're no longer guessing, no longer stumbling blindly. You stop being a passenger, tossed about by the whims of fate, and become the architect of your reality. You move with the current of existence rather than being crushed by it. The blueprint was always there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to find it. Now the door is open. Will you step through? Imagine a world where everything you've ever known about reality is just the tip of an iceberg, a faint shadow of a deeper truth. The first and most powerful principle in the Kybalion, the ancient text of Hermetic wisdom, is the law of mentalism. It declares, with breathtaking simplicity, that all is mind. Everything you see, touch, experience, and even fear originates in consciousness. This isn't a metaphor, nor is it mysticism shrouded in vague spirituality. It's the raw, unfiltered framework of reality itself. The universe, the Kybalion asserts, is mental. If that sounds absurd or overly abstract, pause for a moment. You've been conditioned your entire life to believe that reality is made of matter, that what's real must be physical, measurable, something you can hold in your hands or quantify with a ruler. But what if that's backwards? What if consciousness doesn't emerge from the brain, as we've been taught, but the brain is merely a receiver, a radio tuning into the infinite frequencies of consciousness? What if your thoughts don't just flicker in the privacy of your mind, but ripple outward, like stones dropped in a cosmic pond, shaping the form and function of your relationships, your outcomes, your entire existence? Picture your mind as a projector, not a passive screen. It's not just watching the movie of your life, it's playing it frame by frame. What you believe becomes what you see. What you expect becomes what you encounter. This isn't about random coincidence or fleeting luck. It's about structure, a precise and elegant system that governs reality. The law of mentalism doesn't just apply to lofty, abstract ideas. It's the invisible hand behind everything, the shape of your life, the warmth or tension in your relationships, the vitality or fragility of your health, even the moments you chalk up to fate or fortune. All of it begins in the mind. Every time you sigh and say, "That's just how life is," you're casting a vote for your own limits. Every time you convince yourself something is too hard, too late, or too unlikely, you're not just observing reality, you're reinforcing it. In the Hermetic model, belief doesn't follow experience. Experience follows belief. This is where modern society has led us astray, tethering us to a worldview that looks outward for answers, solutions, and validation. We wait for life to hand us permission slips to feel peace, success, or worthiness. We chase external markers, money, titles, approval, hoping they'll fix the unease within. But the Kybalion flips that logic on its head. It proclaims that your inner world creates your outer world. To transform your life, you don't start by forcing your environment to bend. You start by mastering your mind. Until you do, every change you make is just a temporary fix, a surface level rearrangement of a deeper pattern. This isn't about plastering positive affirmations over unresolved trauma or forcing a smile to mask pain. It's about recognizing that everything, every joy, every struggle, is filtered through your mind. The quality of your thoughts determines the texture of your life. When you think of yourself as weak, life mirrors that weakness, presenting challenges that feel insurmountable. When you see yourself as unworthy, life reflects rejection, subtly or overtly, in the way opportunities slip through your fingers or relationships falter. But when you grasp that you are the origin, not the echo, everything shifts. You stop waiting for the world to change. You become the source, the spark that ignites transformation. This principle is dangerous to systems built on control, governments, institutions, and cultural narratives that thrive when you feel powerless. Because once you understand that you are the projector, the game changes. You no longer need to beg for opportunity, validation, or power. You realize you've had it all along, buried beneath layers of doubt and distraction. You weren't powerless. You were misdirected. This isn't about ego or wishful thinking. It's about alignment, aligning your inner state with clarity, focus, and intention. When you do, the outer world begins to resonate, not because it's reacting to you, but because it is you. There's no true separation between your thoughts and your life. They are two expressions of the same source. The law of mentalism reveals that all separation is an illusion. You're not a bystander in the universe, observing it from the sidelines. You're woven into its fabric, thinking it into being with every choice, every belief. When you internalize this, not just intellectually, but experientially, your perspective transforms. You stop chasing fleeting fixes and start attracting what aligns with your essence. You stop treating symptoms and begin addressing causes. You notice how the world bends subtly to your emotional tone, your belief structure, your mental atmosphere. Synchronicities emerge, connections form, and opportunities appear, not as magic, but as the natural output of a mind in harmony with reality's operating system. For the first time, you're holding the user manual, and the possibilities are staggering. This truth connects to another ancient maxim, repeated by mystics, alchemists, and philosophers across centuries. As above, so below. As within, so without. This isn't poetry or symbolism, it's a literal key, a cipher unlocking the fractal nature of reality. Everything is connected, mirroring itself across scales. What unfolds in the vast cosmos echoes within you. What stirs in your inner world shapes your external reality. Nothing exists in isolation. The Kybalionian's law of correspondence builds on this, revealing that patterns repeat across all planes of existence. The micro reflects the macro. Galaxies swirl like atoms in a cosmic dance. Tides rise and fall like the rhythm of your breath. The emotions you try to bury don't vanish. They resurface, manifesting in your body as tension, in your health as imbalance, in your environment as chaos. That inner voice, the one whispering doubts or dreams, doesn't stay confined to your mind. It shows up in the way people speak to you, treat you, reflect you back to yourself. This law isn't about mystical fluff, it's about precision. Reality operates on correspondence, a system so exact that your internal state dictates your external experience. If you harbor scarcity, you'll see lack everywhere. If you carry resentment, conflict will find you. But the moment you shift your inner blueprint, rewriting beliefs, releasing old wounds, the outer world responds. You don't need to overhaul every corner of your life. Change the source, and the reflection follows. Consider how often we try to fix life from the outside in. We switch jobs, end relationships, or move cities, only to find the same patterns, trailing us. That's not bad luck, it's correspondence. Until your inner frequency shifts, the external script loops. This is why self-reflection isn't indulgence, it's essential. Unresolved emotions, unexamined beliefs, they're the static distorting your signal. Clear them, and life begins to flow. People respond differently. Opportunities feel less like accidents and more like mirrors of who you're becoming. This is the power of Hermetic wisdom. It hands you the tools to rewrite your reality. The law of mentalism and correspondence aren't invitations to believe. They're blueprints for creation. You're not a passenger in your life. You're the architect. The question isn't whether these laws are real. It's whether you're ready to live as if they are. Are you ready to stop reacting and start shaping? To stop chasing and start aligning? The code is running, and you've just glimpsed the manual. What you do with it is up to you. because reality doesn't operate in disconnected pieces. It runs on correspondence. This is why you can't fix external problems without addressing internal patterns. People chase money without looking at their beliefs about scarcity. They demand respect while hating themselves in silence. They try to force love while carrying abandonment in their nervous system. And when life doesn't give them what they want, they blame the world, unaware that the world was only ever showing them what they truly hold inside. That's not punishment, it's precision. Reality doesn't hate you, it's mirroring you, and that mirror is merciless. Not out of cruelty, but out of consistency. If you carry chaos inside, your life will reflect chaos. If you believe you're undeserving, life will echo back situations to confirm it. But here's the power of this law. The moment you shift within, the mirror starts to change. You don't have to chase transformation across 10 different areas of your life. You change the internal blueprint and the external architecture responds. Think about how often people try to solve problems from the outside in. They quit the job, leave the relationship, move cities, but the same patterns follow them. Different scenery, same story. That's not bad luck. That's correspondence. Until the inner frequency changes, the external script repeats. Because the world isn't broken, it's accurate. This is why shadow work matters. Why reflection isn't self-indulgent, but essential. Because until you clean up the emotional static inside you, your life remains a reflection of outdated software. You don't need better circumstances. You need internal clarity, emotional hygiene, nervous system repair, belief recalibration. And once those things shift, life begins to move differently. People respond differently. Opportunities feel less like accidents and more like reflections of who you've become. Correspondence is also why you can look at the world around you and learn about yourself. What triggers you isn't just out there. It's an echo of something unresolved within. What patterns repeat in your relationships? What themes show up in the people you attract? Your life is always trying to show you something about your own vibration. The question is whether you'll look. Even on a cosmic level, this law applies. The structure of the atom mirrors the structure of the solar system. Your lungs mirror the branches of a tree. Your nervous system mirrors the web of the internet. The patterns are everywhere because the source is singular. This isn't spiritual fluff, it's sacred math. The Hermetic tradition teaches that when you study one layer of existence deeply, you gain insight into all the others. Learn to understand your mind, and you begin to understand reality. Learn to regulate your emotions, and you start to unlock manifestation. Learn to decipher your patterns, and you start rewriting your fate. As above, so below means you were never separate from anything. You are the microcosm of the macrocosm, a living portal through which the universe experiences itself. And once you understand that, you're not just watching life anymore. You're participating in it consciously. You're working with the echo instead of fighting the reflection. And everything begins to respond. Everything vibrates, everything moves, nothing rests. That's not poetry, it's physics. And long before modern science confirmed it, the Kybalion declared it. The law of vibration is one of the most misunderstood yet most powerful principles in the Hermetic system. It teaches that nothing is fixed. Not your emotions, not your reality, not even the thoughts you think are just the way it is. Every single thing you've ever experienced, pain, joy, failure, love, has a frequency, and that frequency can shift, which means your life isn't stuck. It's vibrating. You might not feel it, but on a quantum level, the table you touch, the breath you take, the words you speak, all of them are moving, oscillating, resonating. You're swimming in a sea of frequency, and your body, mind, and spirit are all instruments in that field. When you feel off around certain people or spaces, that's not just mood, it's mismatch. Vibration recognizes vibration, and your life, whether you realize it or not, is always organizing itself around the frequency you're holding. This law hits deeper when you realize that you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are, what you're tuned to. If your core frequency is rooted in fear, then fear-based experiences will find you. If your dominant vibration is scarcity, then opportunities will feel scarce. It's not personal, it's harmonic. Reality doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you radiate. That's why you can do all the right things, say all the affirmations, visualize your dream life, and still feel stuck. Because it's not about what's on your vision board. It's about what's in your nervous system. It's about what you feel when nobody's watching, what you believe when everything's quiet. Vibration isn't something you fake. It's something you embody, and embodiment doesn't come from performance. It comes from alignment. Start to think of your emotional states not as annoyances but as frequencies. Anger, grief, joy, gratitude. Each has its own vibration. You've felt it. Gratitude lifts you. Grief pulls you inward. Anxiety scrambles the signal. That's not a metaphor. That's the felt experience of vibrational resonance. And the beautiful thing, you're not locked into any of it. You can shift. You can recalibrate. Not instantly, not perfectly, but deliberately. That's what the law of vibration gives you. The ability to influence your own frequency and in doing so reshape the field around you. This is why tools like meditation, breathwork, sound healing, and even silence work. They don't just calm you down, they tune you. They help you drop below the surface noise and access your base frequency. And once you're aware of that baseline, you can start to shift it. You become more intentional with what you consume, media, food, conversations, because everything is either raising or lowering your state. There is no neutral. And it goes further. The law of vibration explains why certain music moves you, why some environments drain you, why some people light up a room while others dim it. It's all frequency. Some frequencies expand you, others compress you. Most people never learn to discern this. They live on autopilot, reacting to their environment, unaware that they're absorbing the vibration of every room they walk into, every piece of content they scroll past, every voice they let in. But once you understand this law, you stop reacting and start tuning. You stop saying, "I had a bad day," and start asking, "What frequency did I slip into?" You stop blaming circumstances and start managing your state. You realize that you're not just a participant, you're a broadcaster, and the world is responding to your signal. You don't raise your vibration by forcing positivity or denying reality. You raise it by choosing clarity, by letting go of what no longer resonates, by remembering that movement is always possible, that nothing is still, that no matter how long you felt stuck, the truth is you've always been vibrating. And now you get to choose the frequency. Most people live their lives at the mercy of circumstances. They blame the economy for their lack of wealth, their childhood for their emotional wounds, their partner for their unhappiness. Everything is someone else's fault, somewhere else's doing. But the Kybalion teaches that this mindset is the signature of those trapped on the effect side of reality, those who wait, react, and rationalize. The law of cause and effect is the dividing line between being a passive observer of your life and becoming a conscious creator of it. This principle states that nothing happens by chance. Every outcome has a cause. Every result has a root. If something exists in your life, it didn't just appear. It was created directly or indirectly by forces you either initiated or allowed. And until you understand that, you'll keep experiencing your life as chaos instead of consequence. You'll keep thinking it's bad luck instead of misalignment. You'll keep feeling like a victim. Even when the truth is far more empowering, you've been the source all along. Now, that doesn't mean every painful thing in your life is your fault, but it does mean everything in your life is your responsibility. There's a difference. Fault keeps you stuck. Responsibility frees you. Because once you accept that you have the power to cause, you also accept that you have the power to change. This is the law that breaks helplessness. It snaps you out of spiritual bypassing and forces you to confront the choices, conscious or unconscious, that shaped your current reality. Think about it. How many times have you said something like, "Why does this always happen to me?" Or, "Why can't I catch a break?" Hidden in those questions is an assumption that life is random, that outcomes are unfair, that reality is working against you. But that perspective only exists when you don't understand this law, when you don't realize that repeated patterns are evidence of repeated causes, that nothing is showing up to you, it's showing up from you. When you internalize this, everything shifts. You stop trying to control people and start mastering your energy. You stop chasing external validation and start aligning with internal integrity. You start asking better questions, not why me, but what pattern am I repeating? What belief is driving this? What thought or habit is feeding this outcome? Those are the questions of someone moving from effect to cause, from victim to architect. You also begin to see how others live caught in loops of their own making, not because they're lazy or broken, but because they've never been taught this law. They keep trying to fix outcomes instead of correcting origins. They try to manage symptoms while ignoring the root vibration. And that's why so many people, despite all their efforts, stay stuck. They're trying to build a new life with the same old tools. This law doesn't just invite you to break cycles. It demands it. It demands that you stop outsourcing your power, that you stop pretending you're just along for the ride. The law of cause and effect doesn't ask you to like your circumstances. It asks you to own them, not from guilt, but from strength. Because once you do, you can begin to track the signal back to the source. You can reverse engineer your results. And when you start doing that, you realize something most people never do. Nothing is truly out of your hands. You can become the cause, the initiating force, the conscious chooser. And the moment you do, you begin to move differently in the world. You speak with intention. You act with clarity. You create with discipline. You start to anticipate outcomes instead of being surprised by them. You stop living in reactivity and start living in rhythm. You begin to walk through life with the quiet knowing that nothing is random because you've taken your seat at the source. And that's where freedom lives. Not in avoiding pain or controlling others, but in understanding how to trace every experience back to thought, belief, vibration, or action. When you master the law of cause and effect, you don't just fix your life, you reclaim it. The world you live in is built on opposites. Hot and cold, light and dark, good and bad, masculine and feminine. From the moment you were born, your mind was trained to divide reality into binaries, this or that, right or wrong, win or lose. And while duality helps you navigate the physical world, it also traps you in limitation if you never learn to see beyond it. The Kybalion addresses this through two closely connected laws, the law of polarity and the law of gender. Together they expose the illusion of separation and offer a path toward inner alchemy. Let's start with polarity. This law states that everything is dual, but that opposites are the same in nature, differing only in degree. Think about temperature. Hot and cold are not separate forces. They're the same thing measured on a spectrum. Where does cold end and heat begin? You can't define it. You can't draw the line. The same goes for love and hate, fear and courage, success and failure. They're different frequencies of the same essence. Once you understand that, you begin to see that transformation doesn't require replacement. It requires elevation. You don't eliminate fear to become courageous. You transmute fear by raising its frequency. You don't have to destroy the darkness. You just turn up the light. This law also reveals the manipulative power of polarity in society. Politics, media, religion, they all thrive on binary thinking. Us versus them, right versus left. You're made to believe you have to choose a side. But sides create division. Division feeds control. The Kybalion reminds you that true power isn't found in extremes. It's found in balance. Polarity is not the enemy. Attachment to one pole is. Then there's the law of gender, perhaps the most misunderstood of them all. When people hear gender, they think biology. But this principle has nothing to do with body parts and everything to do with energy. It teaches that both masculine and feminine forces exist in everything and everyone. The masculine is active, directive, assertive. The feminine is receptive, intuitive, creative. One is not superior to the other. They are complementary. They are two aspects of the same source, and when they're out of balance, things break. Look around. We live in a hyper-masculine world, one obsessed with doing, forcing, dominating, productivity over presence, control over intuition, loud over quiet. But without the feminine principle, there is no creation. Without the feminine, there is no inner guidance, no flow, no integration, and the result, burnout, numbness, disconnection, people achieving more and feeling less, hustling while hollow. When you understand the law of gender, you stop confusing softness with weakness. You stop fearing stillness. You stop suppressing parts of yourself to fit a role. And instead, you begin to harmonize. You learn when to act and when to receive, when to speak and when to listen, when to build and when to rest. You stop seeing yourself as fractured, and you start integrating the full spectrum of who you are. And this isn't just about personal balance, it's cosmic. The ancients believed that true creation only happens when these polarities unite in harmony. That every act of manifestation, every birth of a new reality, requires both the seed and the soil, the intention and the intuition, the fire and the water. You are both. You've always been both. But society trained you to over-identify with one, suppress the other, and wonder why you feel incomplete. The Kybalion doesn't ask you to become someone else. It asks you to become whole, to move beyond the illusion of extremes and into the space where transformation lives. In the middle, where opposites meet, where polarity dissolves, where creation begins. That's where your power has been waiting. Not in choosing one side, but in learning how to dance between them. Music. The world treats the Kybalion like it's just another esoteric book, forgotten, dusty, symbolic. But its teachings didn't fade because they were irrelevant. They were buried because they were too powerful. This knowledge was never meant for everyone. It was preserved in secrecy, passed through mystery schools, veiled in allegory, and protected by those who understood its potential. Not because it was dangerous to the world, but because it was dangerous to the systems that profit from people staying blind. You weren't supposed to know that you're a creator. You were meant to believe you're a consumer. You weren't supposed to understand how your thoughts shape reality. You were supposed to outsource your thinking to institutions, to governments, to religion, to the media. Power structures don't thrive when people think for themselves. They thrive when people obey, repeat, and conform. And the Kybalion, it's the exact opposite of that. It doesn't ask you to join a movement. It asks you to wake up. Throughout history, this knowledge has never really disappeared. It just changed costumes. The Hermetic principles have been whispered through Egyptian temples, echoed in ancient Greece, reinterpreted by Gnostics, alchemists, Sufis, and even embedded in early Christian mysticism. You'll find traces of these laws in the teachings of Buddha, in the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegist, in the writings of Plato, in the symbols of Freemasonry. They're everywhere and nowhere, hidden in plain sight, visible only to those who are truly looking. And that's no accident, because when you strip away dogma and control, what remains is the raw architecture of reality. These principles are the scaffolding behind all spiritual systems. They're the framework beneath the metaphor. The Kybalion doesn't contradict religion. It reveals what religion was built on before it was distorted by men with agendas. That's why it feels familiar when you read it. It resonates. Not because it's new, but because it speaks to something you've always known somewhere deep under the noise. But let's be clear, this isn't about ancient history. This is about now. In a world drowning in distraction, in chaos, in algorithmic manipulation, Hermetic knowledge is a threat. It teaches sovereignty over submission, creation over consumption, inner truth over external noise. And most people, they've been trained to fear that kind of freedom, to think it's selfish, dangerous, rebellious, to see it as a threat to social order. And you know what? It is. But not in the way they'd have you believe. Because when enough people wake up to this knowledge, things change. Not through riots or revolutions, but through resonance, through the quiet power of individuals who stop chasing and start embodying, who stop following scripts and start writing their own. That's the real threat. Not violence, but vision. Not protest, but presence. When you live in alignment with these laws, you radiate a frequency that's difficult to manipulate. You stop being programmable. You start being sovereign. And this is what they don't want. Not they, as in shadowy figures in some hidden room, but the collective machinery of control that depends on your distraction, your disempowerment, your doubt. Because a person who knows they are the cause, who understands correspondence, who masters their vibration and balances their polarities is untouchable. You can't shame them into obedience. You can't scare them into silence. You can't sell them an illusion. They've seen through it. The legacy of the Kybalion isn't a secret anymore. It's not locked away in mystery schools or cloaked in riddles. It's accessible right now. And that's the most radical truth of all. You don't need permission. You don't need initiation. You just need awareness. The gate was never locked. You were just never told there was a door. Understanding the laws is one thing. Living them, that's where everything changes, because knowledge without embodiment is just another distraction. You can read every esoteric book in existence, memorize the 7 principles, quote them back with perfect precision, and still stay trapped in the same cycles if you don't apply them. The Kybalion is not a philosophy to admire, it's a manual to integrate. These laws aren't asking you to worship anything. They're asking you to wake up and operate reality with awareness. So what does it actually mean to live the laws? It means you become intentional with everything. Your thoughts, your reactions, your habits, your energy. You start to notice how your inner state is creating your outer world. You observe how a small shift in belief changes the course of a conversation, how choosing presence instead of panic transforms an entire day, how mastering your response in a moment of stress doesn't just change the outcome, it rewires your reality. Living the law of mentalism means you stop letting your thoughts run on autopilot. You take responsibility for what you're projecting, not just what you're perceiving. It's no longer about blame or guilt. It's about alignment. It's about asking, what am I thinking right now? And is it in harmony with what I want to create? You don't wait for clarity to show up. You cultivate it. Living the law of correspondence means you stop separating your life into compartments. There's no such thing as just work stress or just a bad relationship. Every pattern reflects a deeper pattern. You start looking at your external world like a mirror. And when something's off, you don't attack the reflection. You go to the source. You ask, where inside me does this pattern begin? Living the law of vibration means you become attuned to your frequency, not just in moments of meditation, but throughout the day. You pay attention to how people, media, food, and environments impact your state. And instead of blaming the outside world, you get deliberate about tuning your inner instrument. You no longer try to force outcomes. You raise your frequency and let resonance do the work. Living cause and effect means no more waiting for the world to fix itself. You stop being passive. You stop treating problems as fate and start treating them as feedback. You act with precision. You take initiative. You become the cause, not occasionally, but consistently. That's the shift. That's the upgrade. That's where real freedom begins. And here's what most people won't understand. This path isn't loud. It's not about showing off your growth or branding your awakening. It's quiet, steady, disciplined. Most of the transformation happens in the moments no one sees. The thought you catch and reframe, the emotion you process instead of suppress, the truth you tell yourself when it would be easier to run. That's the work. That's the mastery. And it compounds over time. You don't need a new identity. You need inner congruence. Your outer life will align as a byproduct. And yes, there will still be challenges, but you'll face them differently. You won't panic because you'll know how to pause. You won't spiral because you'll know how to recalibrate. You won't abandon yourself because you've built a relationship with your mind, your frequency, your reality. Living the laws doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It requires choosing awareness over reactivity again and again until awareness becomes your default, until creation becomes natural, until you're no longer asking, why is this happening to me? Because you already know. You caused it or you allowed it. And now you get to choose differently. There comes a pivotal moment in your journey, a turning point where the questions that once consumed you dissolve into something deeper, something more profound. You stop wrestling with whether reality is real, whether life holds meaning, and instead, you start asking, how does it work? You realize that life isn't a random sequence of events or a cosmic lottery. It runs on code, intricate patterns, universal laws, and unseen forces that operate with indifference to your opinions, fears, or doubts. This is the revelation of the Kybalion. An ancient text that doesn't ask you to believe in something new. It hands you a system, a blueprint, for navigating what it calls the simulation, because that's exactly what this is. Not a simulation in the sci-fi sense, with blinking holograms or dystopian overlords, but an energetic one. It's a mental construct, woven from the threads of consciousness, filtered through the lens of perception, and projected outward as the experiences that define your life. The material world, the desk you touch, the coffee you sip, the faces you pass on the street, is just the interface, the surface layer of a far deeper reality. Beneath it lies the code, thought, vibration, polarity, cause. These are the building blocks, the invisible currents that shape everything you know. When you live unaware of this code, life feels like a storm you can't predict or control. It's chaotic, punishing, a relentless cycle of highs and lows that seem to strike without reason. You lose a job, a relationship falters, or opportunities slip away, and you chalk it up to bad luck or fate. But when you start to see the structure, the elegant, unyielding system beneath the chaos, everything begins to make sense. Not because life suddenly becomes a breeze, but because you finally understand how it moves, like a dancer learning the rhythm of a song they've been stumbling through. This isn't about escaping the simulation, fleeing to some utopian void. It's about mastering it, the way a lucid dreamer wakes up within the dream and takes the reins. When you become aware of the laws outlined in the Kybalion, you become lucid in waking life. Circumstances no longer drag you along like a puppet on strings. You see the levers, the patterns, the echo loops that ripple through your reality. You're no longer a bystander. You're a participant, an architect of your own experience. Pain stops being something you merely endure. You examine it, tracing its roots to a belief, a fear, or a misaligned vibration. Feeling lost no longer traps you in despair. You track the frequency that led to the detour, adjusting your inner compass. This is the power of understanding the code. You're not just reacting anymore, flailing against the tides of life. You're rewriting the script, line by deliberate line. What you'll discover is astonishing. The world begins to bend, subtly but undeniably, to your awareness. Not with fireworks or instant miracles, not with magic wands or overnight transformations, but with a quiet rhythm, a precision that feels almost orchestral. Synchronicities emerge, chance meetings, perfect timings, opportunities that feel too flawless to be accidents. This isn't luck, it's alignment. It's the simulation recognizing a conscious player, someone who's no longer sleepwalking through the game. The greatest trap, the lie we've all been fed, is thinking you're separate from the system, a mere speck fighting to survive in a cold, indifferent universe. But you are the system. The same intelligence that spins galaxies through the cosmos breathes through your lungs. The same laws that govern the orbits of stars dictate the choices you make, the words you speak, the emotions that ripple through your heart. The simulation doesn't trap you, it mirrors you, reflecting your inner state with merciless accuracy. This is the truth they never told you, the secret the Kybalion unveils. When you stop fighting the reflection, blaming the world, cursing your circumstances, and start working with the code, you move from chaos to coherence. You don't need to burn your life to the ground, quit your job, or vanish into a forest to find peace. You just need to see differently, think differently, align your actions with the laws instead of battling against them. Piece by piece, your reality recalibrates. Not because you forced it with sheer willpower, but because you harmonized with the truth of how existence actually works. The question is no longer whether these laws are real. The question is whether you're ready to live as if they are. Are you ready to stop reacting to life's punches and start creating your own path? Are you ready to stop being a pawn on the board and become the one who moves the pieces? This shift doesn't come through control, through gripping life tighter, until your knuckles turn white. It comes through awareness, through tuning your frequency like a musician finding the perfect pitch. That's what Hermetic wisdom offers. Not a list of answers to memorize, but a toolbox for transformation. The beauty of it? You don't need permission. You don't need to be anointed or chosen by some cosmic gatekeeper. You don't need to wait for the right moment. The laws have been here all along, etched into the fabric of reality. The code has always been running, waiting for you to open your eyes. What you do with this awareness is your choice, your responsibility. But know this, once you see the game, once you glimpse the levers, the patterns, the truth of how it's played, you can't go back to pretending you're clueless. You can't unsee the code. It's like waking up in a dream and realizing you can fly. The rules have changed and you're no longer bound by the limits you once accepted. This is your invitation to step into that power, to move from passenger to pilot. The Kybalion doesn't promise a life without challenges, but it offers clarity, a way to navigate the storms with purpose. It's a call to stop drifting and start directing, to stop surviving and start shaping. The simulation is alive, responsive, waiting for you to claim your role as a conscious creator. The energy you put out truly shapes your reality. So how do you personally direct that energy in your own life? Share your experience in the comments below. We want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to watch the video in its entirety. If you're interested in exploring more topics on spirituality, inner transformation, or mind philosophy, don't forget to subscribe to the Top Hidden Knowledge channel for more content on wisdom, spirituality, and personal growth. Or, if you have time, check out other videos on this channel. Until next time.